Imagine being the heir to pretty much the greatest wealth the ancient world had ever seen.
Right, the absolute pinnacle of Egyptian royalty.
Yeah. You have access to the finest chariots, the most expansive estates, the absolute highest social status in a global superpower. And then, you throw every single bit of it away for a dusty, unseen plot of land in a territory you have never even visited.
It is wild to think about.
It really is. And that is what happened in roughly 1800 BC. Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we are taking a deep dive into an ancient text, Genesis 48, verses 1 through 7. Our mission today is to examine a dying man's final actions in a foreign land. We're going to unpack how a quiet conversation in a private bedroom, well, how it drastically rewrote the future of an entire nation.
Yeah, the text describes Jacob, who is also known as Israel, on his deathbed in Goshen. And Goshen was this highly fertile region in Egypt.
Right. And his son Joseph, who functions as the Grand Vizier of Egypt at this time, he approaches the bed with his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh.
So on the surface, this looks like a frail, elderly grandfather giving a sentimental farewell to his grandchildren.
Exactly. But the sources we are looking at today reveal a legal and theological transaction of cosmic proportions.
The contrast between what is visible in that room and what is actually occurring is just staggering. I mean, the physical reality is a decaying patriarch.
Right.
He is a man whose eyesight is failing and his natural strength is entirely spent. Yet the spiritual and legal reality taking place is the complete restructuring of a covenant people.
Yeah, we are witnessing a sovereign decree that overrides human tradition, political alliances, and, the natural order of birthrights.
It completely flips the script.
It does. And this brings the entire situation right to the doorstep of anyone listening to this deep dive. I mean, it is so easy to measure your life by what you can control.
Oh, for sure.
We tend to evaluate our security by our bank accounts or our career trajectories or physical vitality or our social standing.
Yeah, we look at the visible metrics of success.
Right, we constantly do that. But this specific historical event challenges that standard from the ground up. It forces a complete reevaluation of what constitutes true inheritance and true security. So, to understand why this quiet meeting is so fraught with tension, we have to pull back the camera. We have to look outside that bedroom in Goshen and examine the broader historical reality of the Egyptian Middle Kingdom.
Yeah, we need to talk about who Ephraim and Manasseh actually are.
Please, set the stage for us.
Well, to grasp the gravity of the situation, we have to understand the geopolitical and social climate of the Egyptian Middle Kingdom, specifically during the 12th dynasty.
Okay.
This was an era of immense, just staggering wealth and centralized political control. Joseph is not just some high-ranking official, he is the Grand Vizier.
Right, he is second only to Pharaoh himself.
Precisely. He controls the agricultural distribution during a severe famine, which means, well, he basically holds the economic levers of the entire known world. Yeah. And his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, are born into this hyper-elite stratosphere. They are not wandering, tent-dwelling shepherds like their ancestors back in Canaan.
No, not at all.
They are Egyptian royalty, thoroughly embedded in the upper crust of the most advanced civilization on Earth.
And the sources highlight a specific detail about their mother's lineage that makes this even more intense.
Yeah.
I mean, their maternal grandfather is Potipharah. The text specifies that he is the priest of On.
Right. And On is the ancient city of Heliopolis. This was the absolute epicenter of the sun-worshipping cult of Ra. The priesthood of Heliopolis held massive political and religious influence.
They were the heavy hitters.
Oh, absolutely. They
Sure.
were the intellectuals, the kingmakers, the theological elite of Egypt. So Ephraim and Manasseh possess the highest possible pedigree.
Right.
They are tied by blood to the political administration through their father and tied to the religious elite through their grandfather.
I want to frame this with a modern parallel to help us just understand the sheer weight of what they possess.
Go for it.
Think about the corporate structure of a massive global tech monopoly. When a company wants to retain its top executives, they use a system of compensation known as golden handcuffs.
Oh, yeah, the stock options.
Right? They offer millions of dollars in stock options, but those options vest over a 10-year period. So the executive might want to leave, they might want to start their own venture, But the financial incentive to stay is so overwhelming that they are effectively trapped by their own wealth.
Right. If they walk away, they forfeit an empire.
Exactly. And Egypt is functioning as a set of golden handcuffs for the family of Jacob. When they originally went to Goshen for preservation, there was a 7-year famine, and God used the infrastructure of Egypt to keep the covenant family alive. But 17 years later, that preservation has morphed into a very different kind of reality.
Yeah, the initial sanctuary has become a crucible of assimilation. This is the subtle, creeping danger that Jacob recognizes. The secular luxury of Pharaoh's court threatens to absorb the chosen seed entirely. The risk is not that Ephraim and Manasseh will be persecuted or enslaved. I mean, that comes generations later.
Right, that's much later.
The immediate risk is that they will simply become comfortable. They will become full-blooded Egyptians, fully vested in the wealth of Heliopolis, and they will completely forget the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob about a specific piece of land in Canaan and the coming Messiah.
Yeah.
They are on the verge of being swallowed whole by the culture.
That concept of assimilation through comfort is fascinating. It is much harder to fight against luxury than it is to fight against tyranny.
Oh, definitely.
Jacob sees the comfortable trap closing around his grandsons. And this is where the narrative gives us a brilliant grammatical detail that highlights the clash between physical frailty and spiritual vitality.
Right, the text notes that Jacob is sick. He is bedridden.
Yeah, but when he is told that Joseph is coming to see him, the text says, Israel strengthened himself and sat up on the bed.
The deliberate shift in the name the author uses is a crucial detail here. The text shifts from calling him Jacob, which means the heel catcher, the struggler, the deceiver, to calling him Israel, his covenantal name.
Wow, that's a great point.
Yeah, he is acting in his official capacity as the head of the covenant nation. His body is failing, his organs are shutting down, but he is animated by a divine decree.
Right.
The physical weakness is completely eclipsed by the theological authority he is about to exercise.
He rallies every ounce of physical strength he has left just to sit upright. And since he sits up with such specific, calculated authority, the immediate question is where that authority comes from.
Right.
He does not begin this critical conversation by talking about Joseph's political achievements. He does not review the Egyptian economy or discuss how many grain silos are full.
No, he doesn't care about any of that.
He bypasses his entire earthly resume and points backward to one specific encounter. He says, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz. Luz being the ancient Canaanite name for Bethel.
And the vocabulary he uses here sets the foundation for everything that follows. In the original Hebrew, he refers to God as El Shaddai, God Almighty.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, this specific title denotes absolute, self-sufficient, overwhelming strength. It is the title God uses when human strength is totally spent and human resources are zero.
Wow.
Jacob is looking at his own failing body, so he invokes the God who requires no human assistance whatsoever to accomplish his will.
The verbs attached to that encounter at Luz tell the exact same story. I mean, the text says God appeared to him.
Yeah, the Hebrew word translated as appeared is nira. It is a passive, reflexive verb form.
What does that mean for the reader?
It carries massive theological weight. It means God was not discovered by Jacob's spiritual seeking.
Right.
God was not found because Jacob climbed a mountain or deciphered a puzzle. God broke into the darkness to initiate the disclosure. The revelation was entirely one-sided.
Yeah.
The initiative is exclusively divine, operating independently of Jacob's merit or effort.
So God breaks through the natural state of things. And the text also includes the phrase Hineni, correct? Behold me.
Yes, Hineni is a marker of intense divine certainty. It functions as a bold, undeniable declaration of presence.
Okay.
God is saying, look at me, I am the one doing this. God then tells Jacob he will make him fruitful, multiply him, and make him a company of peoples.
I want to push on that specific phrase, a company of peoples. The Hebrew is kahal amim. Why does the text use that specific wording instead of just calling him a single unified nation? Egypt is a nation. Babylon is a nation. What makes a kahal amim distinct from those political entities?
Well, the distinction lies in the concept of an assembly versus a mere secular state.
Okay.
The word qahal refers to a gathered congregation, an assembly called out for a specific purpose. By using qahal amim, the text hints that Israel is not destined to be just another monolithic political state defined by geographic borders or military might.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. They're designed to be an ecclesiastical community. They're a gathered church of distinct tribes, united by worship and covenant, rather than just shared blood or shared soil.
Wow.
It anticipates a future global assembly of distinct peoples gathered under one covenant head.
A gathered congregation rather than a political border. That completely shifts how you view their identity.
It really does.
They're defined by the call of God, not by their proximity to the Nile River, and establishing God's absolute authority and one-sided grace at Luz explains the bold, unnatural legal maneuver Jacob executes next.
Yeah.
He sets the foundation of divine sovereignty so he can completely upend the human legal system.
The theology establishes the jurisdiction for the adoption.
Exactly. So we look at verses 5 and 6, and we see the practical application of this authority. Jacob looks at these two Egyptian-born boys, these heirs to the tech empire in our analogy, and he issues a legally binding decree. He says, they are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh are no longer just Joseph's sons, they are Jacob's.
To comprehend the mechanics of this, we have to look at the socio-legal practices of the ancient Near East.
Good.
Archaeologists have excavated thousands of clay tablets from ancient sites like Nuzi and Mari dating to the patriarchal period.
Right.
These tablets give us a clear window into how property and lineage were handled. They show that adoption in the ancient world was frequently used as a legal fiction to bypass standard inheritance laws.
Interesting.
A grandfather adopting grandsons was a recognized, legally binding custom used to transfer estates, elevate status, and preserve specific lineages against the standard natural order.
Okay, so he's using a known legal framework.
Right. Jacob takes this existing legal framework and weaponizes it for a theological purpose.
He takes a secular contract and infuses it with covenantal weight.
Exactly. The specific Hebrew phrase used here is lihem, which translates to me, they are. In ancient jurisprudence, this is a formula for a complete, irreversible transfer of ownership. Jacob is legally stripping Ephraim and Manasseh of their Egyptian identity. He is severing their ties to the priesthood of On and the political machinery of Pharaoh. By saying they are mine, he is grafting them directly into the covenant line.
Right.
He dictates that they will no longer be defined by the luxury of the court, but by the unseen promises of God.
Okay, let me play the skeptic for a moment here, because this action raises some massive red flags from a human perspective.
Sure.
We know the history of this family. We know Jacob's glaring character flaws. He played favorites his entire life.
Right.
He loved his wife Rachel more than Leah.
Right.
He loved Joseph more than his other sons, famously giving him the ornate robe. So to a cynical observer, doesn't this adoption just look like an old man rigging his final will and testament?
I get that.
Isn't he simply finding a legal loophole to give his favorite son Joseph a double portion of the inheritance by elevating his two grandsons to the status of full independent tribes?
The cynicism is completely understandable given Jacob's track record of deception, but a closer analysis of the legal maneuver shows that he is not indulging the natural order, he is systematically destroying it.
Okay, how so?
In the ancient world, the natural firstborn possessed the absolute right to the double portion of the inheritance. In Jacob's family, the natural firstborn is Reuben. Simeon is second.
Right.
If we operate purely on natural merit and standard human expectations, Reuben inherits the double portion and the primary leadership role. But Reuben and Simeon are explicitly bypassed.
Because of their historical actions, right?
Yeah.
Reuben defiled his father's bed, and Simeon led a violent, unauthorized massacre in Shechem.
Yes. Their prior sins disqualify them from the rights of the firstborn. Jacob places Ephraim and Manasseh on the exact same legal tier as Reuben and Simeon. He explicitly states, they shall be mine as Reuben and Simeon are. This means natural birthrights, biological order, and human expectations are completely overridden by sovereign election.
Wow.
Grace and divine decree dictate the inheritance, not natural merit or chronological birth order. Jacob is disrupting the standard operating procedure of the cosmos to establish a new order based entirely on God's stated will.
The natural firstborns are demoted, and the Egyptian-born grandsons are elevated to full, equal tribal status. It is a total subversion of human tradition.
It really is.
And this subversion leads us directly into the psychology of the original audience. I mean, we have established the legal realities of the adoption, but we have to ask why Moses chose to record this specific bedroom conversation hundreds of years later.
We definitely have to consider who is reading this text for the first time. The original audience is the wilderness generation.
Right. Picture the scenario. These are Hebrews who have just been delivered from brutal slavery in Egypt. They have seen the plagues, they have crossed the Red Sea, and now they are walking through a barren, unforgiving desert. The psychological toll is immense. And what is their constant refrain? They complain. They murmur against Moses. They look back at Egypt with heavily tinted rose-colored glasses.
Oh, absolutely.
They romanticize the past, talking about the garlic, the leeks, and the flesh pots of Egypt. They are willing to trade their freedom for the predictable caloric intake of slavery.
And Moses understands the danger of this mindset. He records this specific historical event as a calculated, devastating polemic against Egypt.
Right.
He is holding up a mirror to the complaining wilderness generation. The message is clear. Look at your own history. The most prestigious, wealthy, elite Egyptian princes Ephraim and Manasseh willingly traded their chariots of gold, their political influence, and their social standing to be numbered with wandering herdsmen.
That reframes their entire perspective. It crushes the infatuation.
It entirely delegitimizes their complaining. Moses forces them to grapple with a stark reality. If these two boys, who possessed every natural right to the absolute peak of Egyptian wealth, considered the dusty, unseen promise of Canaan to be infinitely more valuable than Pharaoh's court, how can the wilderness generation dare to look back to Egypt with longing?
That is such a heavy conviction.
Yeah, the adoption narrative forces the reader to see that true wealth is located in the unseen promises of the covenant, not in the visible stability of the empire.
And there's another very practical reason for Moses laying this out so clearly in the text. It involves the literal geography of the land they are marching toward.
Yes, the prevention of tribal jealousy and civil war. Fast forward to the book of Joshua, when the Israelites actually conquer Canaan and begin dividing up the land.
Right.
Ephraim and Manasseh receive massive, highly prominent, and fertile portions of the territory. Without the historical record of Genesis 48, the other tribes would have rioted.
They would look at the situation and say, why do the Egyptian kids get the best real estate? They just showed up and now they own the prime territory.
Exactly. They would assume it was a political coup, a backroom deal orchestrated by the descendants of Joseph. By recording the legal decree of Jacob, Moses settles all land disputes before they even cross the Jordan River. He proves that the prominent status of the Joseph tribes is not the result of political maneuvering. It was ordained, legally and theologically, by the patriarch before the nation ever left the borders of Egypt. It trains the Israelites to submit to the sovereign decisions of God, even when those decisions override natural human expectations of fairness.
The psychology of the wilderness generation creates a striking modern parallel. I mean, the human tendency hasn't changed in 3,000 years.
No, it really hasn't.
The original audience wanted to return to the comfort of Egypt. In the modern era, we are constantly tempted to Egyptianize our own beliefs. We crave the approval, the stability, and the aesthetic of the surrounding secular culture. We want the benefits of Goshen without the stigma of being labeled a wandering herdsman.
The temptation is to synthesize the two worlds. We attempt to hold on to the covenant while adopting the methodology of the empire.
We dilute doctrines that the culture finds offensive. We adopt the entertainment-driven models of the corporate world to gain an audience. We try to make our beliefs palatable to the priesthood of On.
Yeah, we really do.
But Jacob's action is a total, uncompromising rejection of that pragmatism. He does not say, let's leave Ephraim and Manasseh in Pharaoh's court. Let them climb the political ladder so they can use their secular influence to protect our religious liberties.
Right.
He does not use them as a lobbying group. He demands a complete surgical separation from the destiny of Egypt. He pulls them out of the system entirely and binds them to the covenant.
It functions as a radical call to maintain a distinct, separate identity. The text argues that the covenant community must operate on a fundamentally different set of principles than the surrounding culture, even if it results in being misunderstood or marginalized.
So the scene has reached this triumphant crescendo. Jacob sits up, he exercises his divine authority, he claims the boys, he reorders the entire tribal structure, and he rejects the empire. But then the tone of the text fractures. We hit verse 7, and right after this incredible high, the narrative suddenly plunges into a sorrowful memory. The shift is so abrupt it feels almost disorienting. We have to examine why grief is placed immediately adjacent to a promise of massive victory.
The transition in the text is definitely jarring. Right after issuing the legal decree of adoption, Jacob shifts his focus entirely. He says, "As for me, when I came from Padan, Rachel died by me in the land of Canaan, to my sorrow." He then specifically notes that he buried her on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem.
When you read it casually, it feels completely random. It sounds like the wandering mind of a dying man slipping into nostalgia, just, losing his train of thought.
While it appears to be a sudden tangent, the inclusion of Rachel's death is highly theological. Jacob is executing a very specific maneuver here.
Okay, unpack that.
Rachel died prematurely, giving birth to Benjamin. She left behind only 2 sons, Joseph and Benjamin.
Right.
She never lived to see the fulfillment of the promise of a vast, sweeping offspring. By giving Joseph a double portion through the adoption of Ephraim and Manasseh, Jacob is legally and practically multiplying Rachel's line.
Oh, wow. So he is answering the tragedy of her curtailed motherhood. He is taking the 2 sons she produced and expanding them into 3 distinct tribes.
Exactly. The legal act of adoption swallows the grief of her premature death. But even more critically, we must analyze the geography he mentions. He anchors the memory of her death specifically to the land of Canaan on the road to Bethlehem.
He does not bury her in a foreign land. He ensures her bones rest within the borders of the promise.
This specific text models the concept of sanctified sorrow. It provides a blueprint for how to process heavy loss. The text demonstrates that faith does not require stoic emotional suppression. Jacob does not pretend the loss of the woman he loved didn't hurt. He does not offer a platitude.
No.
He explicitly states, "To my sorrow." He validates the pain. He feels the weight of the death.
He acknowledges the fracture, but he refuses to let the fracture define the entire narrative. I mean, he doesn't fall into a nihilistic despair.
Right. He frames the pain entirely within the borders of the promised land. Sorrow is acknowledged as a very real, very present reality, but it is held within the sovereign hand of God.
Yeah.
The grief does not cancel out the promise. The promise does not magically erase the grief. They exist alongside each other, anchored to the geography of the covenant, waiting for the ultimate fulfillment.
It is a stunning way to view human suffering. The pain is not an aberration. It is incorporated into the landscape of the promise. And that specific, deliberate mention of Bethlehem Ephrath creates a massive, undeniable bridge for the reader. It points directly from the shadow of the ancient patriarchs to the reality in the New Testament.
The geography of Rachel's grave points the reader to the birthplace of the Christological fulfillment.
Let's walk across that bridge. We talked earlier about the pattern of displacement in the book of Genesis, the constant bypassing of the natural firstborn.
Right.
The sources show this is not a one-off event with Ephraim and Manasseh. It is the central organizing principle of the entire book. Abel is chosen over Cain. Isaac is chosen over Ishmael. Jacob himself is chosen over Esau. Ephraim is chosen over Manasseh. Every single time, the natural birthright is discarded. The biological expectation is thrown out the window.
This systematic, relentless rejection of the natural firstborn is a massive theological signpost. It points directly to the concept of the true firstborn.
Okay.
Jesus Christ possesses the absolute, unquestionable natural right to the inheritance of the Father. He is the preeminent firstborn of all creation. He holds the rights by nature, not by adoption.
So how does the specific adoption of Ephraim and Manasseh map onto the mechanics of the cross? I mean, how do these two events connect?
The connection is found in the mechanism of the great displacement. On the cross, Jesus Christ was treated as an outcast.
Right.
He was stripped of his rights, cut off in the land of the living, and treated as though he were the one outside the covenant. The true firstborn was displaced. Why?
Wow. Yeah.
So that individuals with 0 natural rights, 0 biological claim, and 0 inherent merit could receive the double portion of his imputed righteousness.
He absorbs the displacement so we can receive the adoption. The poverty of the cross purchases the wealth of the inheritance.
If we look at the broader theological framework outlined in Ephesians chapter 1, specifically verse 5, the parallel to Genesis 48 is undeniable.
Right.
Like Ephraim and Manasseh, we are born in the metaphorical Egypt of this world. We are born alienated from the promises, foreign to the covenant, and children of wrath by our very nature. We possess no natural claim to the kingdom of God. We are outsiders entrenched in a secular system.
We have no birthright to appeal to. We cannot point to our resume or our lineage.
But we are adopted into the household of God through the work of Christ. And the critical mechanism of this salvation is that it is entirely monergistic.
Meaning?
This means the individual does nothing to earn, initiate, or maintain it. The initiative is exclusively divine, just like God breaking through the darkness to appear at Luz, and just like Jacob overriding the legal system to claim the Egyptian-born boys. The inheritance is granted purely by sovereign decree.
The sheer unearned nature of the adoption brings up a stark contrast that we need to examine, especially when we look at modern interpretations of faith and blessing. Look at the raw facts of the text. Jacob has the blessing of God. He is the patriarch. He holds the covenant. Yet his physical reality is grim. He is dying. His organs are failing. His eyes are dim, and he is stranded in a foreign land.
Right.
Rachel carried the blessing of the covenant line, yet she died prematurely on the side of a dirt road in childbirth.
The physical reality of these individuals thoroughly dismantles modern prosperity theology.
Let's expand on the mechanics of that theology and how this text tears it apart.
Well, prosperity theology argues that divine favor guarantees earthly ease. It equates covenantal blessing with physical health, financial wealth, and immediate circumstantial comfort.
Yeah.
It claims that if you have enough faith, your physical reality will reflect a state of constant victory. Genesis 48 shatters that framework.
Absolutely shatters it.
Jacob is undeniably blessed by God, yet his body is actively decaying. Joseph is highly exalted, yet his personal history is defined by betrayal, false imprisonment, and familial fracture. The text proves that covenantal blessing cannot be measured by immediate physical comfort.
Human metrics are entirely insufficient for evaluating divine favor. I mean, a failing body does not equal a failing promise.
Our true treasure is the inheritance secured and held in Christ, not our current physical vitality or our financial portfolio. Faith is the mechanism that interprets circumstances through the lens of God's spoken promise.
Right.
Unbelief operates in reverse. It interprets the promise through the lens of circumstances. Unbelief looks at a dying patriarch and assumes the promise has failed. Faith looks at the dying patriarch and understands that the promise will outlive the decaying flesh.
The word outlives the flesh. That concept completely reorients how we view our own mortality and our own struggles. The decay of the physical body is not an argument against the validity of the covenant. It is simply the temporary state of things while we wait for the inheritance.
Spot on.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We started by looking at a frail man in a dim room, summoning his last ounce of strength to act on divine authority. We examined the systematic bypassing of natural privilege for sovereign grace. The image of tech heirs trading their vested stock options for a dusty, unseen promise. We explored the concept of sanctified sorrow, holding our grief within the borders of the promised land. And we followed the trail of the displaced firstborns, all the way to the ultimate adoption we receive through the work of Christ.
The narrative provides a stunning, comprehensive display of a God who routinely overrides the mechanics of the cosmos to fulfill his covenant. It forces the reader to abandon all reliance on human tradition and natural merit.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Something for you to chew on long after the audio stops playing.
Yeah.
Think about Jacob. Here's a dying man in a foreign land, surrounded by the towering monuments and the staggering wealth of the greatest empire on earth.
Yeah.
Yet he looks at all of that Egyptian security, all that tangible luxury, and he considers it entirely worthless compared to a covenantal promise he cannot yet see. He saw right through the illusion. He recognized that the golden handcuffs were still handcuffs. So the diagnostic question for you is this. What Egyptian securities in your own life are you holding on to?
That is the real question.
What alliances, what comforts, what cultural approvals are you clutching that feel like safety but are actually a slow process of assimilation? What visible things are robbing you of your true, unseen inheritance?
It is a heavy thing to consider.
When you evaluate your life, human standards will always give you a distorted picture. You need a completely different lens to see what is actually yours. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking the hard questions, and we will catch you next time on Reformed Thinking.